Hi guys, how's it going? This is Big Chris. I'm just going to give a little talk about what is what on a bass to avoid any embarrassment. If you've been playing for years, this video is basically going to be no good to you at all, but this is aimed at the people who have never picked up an instrument in the past, are looking to start playing, and basically want a little bit of information so they don't feel embarrassed asking anyone about it, and give them a little bit of knowledge to know what they're looking for and what they're looking at in music shops or buying a second-hand instrument or whatever. Okay, this is literally just to avoid embarrassment and to make new players feel more comfortable in getting what they want and knowing what they want. Okay, so I'm going to give a little walkthrough from the top to the bottom of the bass and basically tell you what's what. Okay, so the first bit I'm going to talk about is the headstock. Okay, it's called the headstock, so it's on top of the neck, which is on top of the body, so hence head. Okay, now on the headstock you've got these things, these little mechanical devices. Okay, on this particular bass, it's an LTD. There are 5 of them. There are 5 of them because there's 5 strings. Okay, 5 strings, which is B, E, A, D, and G. No jokes about G strings here. Okay, now what these do, they alter the tension on the strings. So the tighter it is, the higher pitched it is. The less tension, the lower pitched it is. Okay, so these are solely to get your strings in tune. There are some fancy ones about where you've got an extra little lever on some of the strings. That's normally to drop it from an E tuning to a D tuning. You see it mostly on 4-string guitars, basses, sorry I should say. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just stick with the bog standard tuners and more machine heads that these are. Okay, so solely to tune each string. Again, B, E, A, D, and G. Okay, the next little thing of interest here, if you see this little black plastic, almost sort of church window shaped item, can be different shapes, is called the truss rod cover. Now surprisingly enough, underneath that cover is access to the truss rod. Okay, now the truss rod is a mechanical device, again, built within the neck, which helps the tension of the neck, which alters the angle, either that sort of action there. Now what that does, if there's a slight warp in the neck, so if it's slightly banana shaped, it can help very slightly pull that warp out. But if you see a banana shape, try and avoid sort of buying that particular instrument. It also, with the angle, helps with the setup of the instrument. That's a whole new other video. There's lots to a setup, but it's just so you know what's going on there. As a cover to what's called the truss rod, which alters the angle of the neck. Okay, just below the truss rod cover, you see this little black plastic thing here. That's called the nut. Now, in this particular model, it's plastic. On other instruments, it can be brass, it could be steel, it could be different types of wood. But in general, it's called the nut. Okay, now the purpose of the nut is to have the grooves in it, which separates the strings. It gives you your string width. Okay, keeps the strings separated. Also, the depth of the groove determines the height of your string from your neck. So if you on your setup, perhaps it's going to a luthier or someone who really knows what they're doing, they could take the strings out, file those grooves down a little bit more to get the strings a little bit closer to the neck if it's needed. Again, something you don't mess around with, but it gives you a little bit of knowledge what that thing is. Okay, now on the back of the neck there's a few little bits of information. You've got a better sort of visual of how these machine heads are and tune as well. But along here, could be different on each model of guitar. I've got my serial number. Okay, it's printed in there. I don't know if you can see it the best. It's silver on a maple sort of finish, so you ain't going to see it the best. But if you ever need to insure an instrument, or you want to know specific specs, that's where you get the information to find out exactly what instrument you have. It'll tell you the year it's made, where it was made, whether it's Korea, Germany, Japan, Britain, whatever. 99% of the time the serial number is on the back of the headstock. You've also got another little bit of other little bits of printed information, like this one is part of the ESP group, and you've got the different kite marks and things here as well, or standard quality marks. Okay, right, I'll move back onto the front of the instrument, and we'll move down a little bit further to this hunk of section, which is called the neck. Now on the neck, most relevant things on this type of bass, which is a fretted bass, there are fretless basses, but these little metal bars running all the way down the neck are called frets. Now they are little bits of generally stainless steel wire that's imposed into the neck, impressed into the neck I should say, which gives you accurately your notes. Now as my hand moves down the neck, the tone gets higher. So that means the shorter the string, the higher the pitch. The lower the string, or the longer the string, the lower the pitch. So for example, I'll give you the extremes. Open, that's the note of B. If I fret it there, that's a C. That's a C sharp. That's a D, D sharp, E, and so on. So it gets higher as you come up the neck. Okay. The other little things you'll notice, I got these markers. Okay. Again, model specific. Some basses have them on the front, others don't. When they do, they got corresponding marks on this edge as well, so you can see where your hands are. See if I can get the camera going properly to get it all showing. These are on the first, sometimes they don't show them till the third, but this one has on the first, third, fifth, seventh, ninth. It's got generally a different one on the 12th. This one's got a serial number or model number, and then it goes then from the 15th, 17th, 19th, and so on. But the significance excuse me, of the 12th fret is that note, or the note on the 12th fret, is in exactly an octave higher than when the string is open. Okay, so I'm hitting the E string there, I hit that note there, that's also E, but it's an octave higher. Okay, and that's about it for the neck. We'll go on to the body now. Okay, now these can be so many different shapes. I've seen them in star shapes, I've seen them in square shapes, V's, which is known as a flying V. I've seen round. There's a multitude of different shapes. Okay, comes down to taste, feel, and what you like, what floats your boat. This is basically, as a general sort of shape, was known as a super strat. The original strat shape came from a guitar model called the Fender Stratocaster. The bass versions, there was a P bass and there was a jazz bass. Again, slightly different, but if you have a look at what a Fender Stratocaster looks like, this is much that sort of shape. It's called Super. It's just a term that came around in the 80s. It's a Strat, but it's a little bit more modern. That's basically it, okay? So this is basically a Strat shape. On the body, you have these big black things, which are called pickups. Now the purpose of these things, your strings are stainless steel, okay? Within these are magnets. The magnets pick up the vibrations of the steel strings, send them through all the electronics of the electric instrument, which then sends it to your amplifier, which amplifies the notes. So that's how it works. They're called pickups because it picks up the frequencies of the strings. This configuration of pickup is what's known as a split pickup. It's called a split up because it's basically two and they're split in two. Okay, that's as much as I understand with that. Now I've also got another pickup down by here, which is called a single coil, which is obviously called single because there's one going across. Now there's other types of pickups where you see, I don't know if you can see on that bass behind me exactly where my finger is there. That's known as a humbucker or a soap bar type pickup, which is basically a lot thicker pickup, and again they give different sounds. There is no better or worse, it just comes down to personal preference and taste, and whether you like what you hear or you not. There's so many different types, and to be frank, with different amps you can get any guitar sounding like any guitar these days, with all the different amp simulators and everything else. But this picks up the signals from the strings and sends them through to your amplifier. Now the next thing you need to know about are these knobs, which is the control knobs. Again, when I said about the serial number and the model number, have a look because there's so many different variations of different knobs do different things, so just to have an understanding. But for example, on this guitar, this one's a master volume. They are two tone knobs and has a blend. So this one blends the two pickups. So if I turn it all the way one way, I get one pickup. If I turn it all the way the other, I get the other one. If I put it in exactly halfway, I get half of that one, half of that one. And then these tones, one tone knob for this one tone knob for that one. On the one behind me, I don't know if you can see, I got two big knobs and three smaller ones. That's a master volume, a blend between the two pickups, and when you got the three smaller ones together on a bass, it's treble, middle and bass controls. So you can turn the treble up, you can turn it down, turn the treble off, you can turn the bass up. You get the idea, you can get it as you want it to sound. Okay, then we got this mechanical device here, which is known as the bridge. Now within the bridge you got all these little springs and levers and loads of different adjustments, and what that's responsible for is the string length, the string height away from the body, okay, which is called your intonation and your action. I'll get into that a little bit later as well. Also, there's a few different types of bridge you can have. If you're getting really extreme, you can get the tremolo on a bass thing as well, which again is a very rare thing and mostly for advanced players. But you got where the strings are connected at the back of the bridge, or in this model they're not connected at the back of the bridge, they go through the body of the guitar and are connected through the body. Okay, so that's a through body stringing or through body bridge, where if behind me are the 6-string you can see on the wall behind you, that's directly into the bridge, and there's the one next to it is through body, the one after that is through the bridge. So it's, again, It's no better, no worse. If they're going through the body, they can pick up slightly more the tones of the wood rather than just the tone of the general instrument. So again, it's a slightly higher end thing going through the body, but it's not essential. Okay. The other thing you need to know about on here, it's by here, and the guitars is on top. Okay, again, no better or worse, just as it's situated. And what that is the jack plug. It's known as a jack plug, or input, or output, really. Yeah, I suppose it's more of an output than an input. Basically, it's where you plug the lead in, which goes to your amplifier to get the sound from the bass to your amplifier. You unplug it, no sound's going to get to your amp. Plug it in into your amplifier, that's where you do it. Okay, pretty basic, that part. Now if I move to the back of the instrument, you can see I've got a few nuts here, a few bolts. That's connecting the neck to the body, which means this neck is a bolt on. Sounds basic enough, doesn't it? You know, but there are guitars out there, they're not a bolt on. The neck is built through the body, so we haven't got a connection here. It's all one piece of wood. So those are through body. This is a bolt on. That's the two different types you got. You've got a little cover here. Now underneath that cover is a battery. Okay, it's a little one of those little 9-volt batteries. Little square thing with two connections on the top. That's providing a little bit extra juice to the pickups. I am all twisted up here now. Yeah, there we go. So that giving a little boost to the pickups to pick up that little bit much more to send to the amplifier. Now if it has a battery, it's what's known as an active bass. Active. If it haven't got one, it's known as a passive. Again, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no better, no worse. It comes down to personal taste. If it's passive, you know, you got your classics like the Fenders, the Fender P basses or precision bass, and the Fender Jazz. The more modern basses tend to have the batteries. It's just, again, personal preference. The other thing you'll see here on this here is another cover. Now if I was to take that off, I'd have access to all these knobs and wires and how they connect to the pickups and everything else. Unless it's broken, don't fix it. You don't need to take it off. Just an access cover to get to the electronics. And that's pretty much it for what the bass is. So just go ahead and play. Now I'll just cover a couple of extra little terms. Again, if you've never picked up a bass or guitar, you wouldn't have a clue what these things are, and again you could feel quite embarrassed asking. So this is what was what. There's one word is intonation. It's like, what the hell is that? But intonation is making sure, for example, again I come back to B string. That's the B string, make sure it's tuned. Now when you come down to the 12th fret, you want to make sure that that's B as well. Now you may find when you put it into a tuner, that's not quite B. It may be not A sharp, but it's somewhere in between. Or it could be, it could almost be C or whatever. It's not quite right. By altering the intonation of the string, which is the actual length of the string, and a little bit of playing around, you can make sure that that's B as well as B. You can make sure that all the frets are in the correct position. Okay. The next one I'll cover is action. Does not mean sort of lights, camera, action. Action is height. Okay, it's the distance between the fret, the string, and your frets. See that little bit of movement there? That's the action. Some players like it quite high, others really, really low. Again, it comes down to personal preference. I like mine quite low, but I also don't like any what we call fret buzz. I like to hit the string. I don't want to hear the string hitting any frets. So this is getting a sweet spot between height between the frets and what's comfortable for yourself playing. Again, intonation, action, all covered under what's called a setup. As we're talking relief necks, and there's so much to cover. For the new player, leave it well alone. The strings, there's a couple of types of string. There's what's called flat wound, which is quite rare really, and the more common type is round wound. Now the easiest way to tell what's what, if you get your fingernail, just rub it on the string, and if you can hear that noise, that's a round wound. Okay, the difference between round wound and flat wounds, every string has got a core. Okay, and round that core you've got other wire going all the way up it. Now round wound is simply round wire going around the core. Okay, so you'll have little ridges all the way down on this string. Flat wound, it's square wire going around the tone, around the core. So when you rub your finger on it, it's smooth. That's it. There's differences in tone. You know, there will be differences of sound and feel when you're playing. I love the sound of and feel of flat wounds, but they are more expensive. Hence, you know, unless strings are completely dead, I don't change them. Okay. There are more types of basses. There's acoustic, electric, or solid bodied, and there are semi-acoustic. Okay, this is a full electric. Okay, basically you need an amplifier to hear it properly. Okay, it's if I was to play this without an amplifier, you'd have a job to hear it. Okay, put this one down a second. I'm going to show you an acoustic. Now, acoustic is your more traditional oldie type instrument, like you. They're a lot thicker. They're hollow. Okay, you've got a hole. This is a bit more unusual because the hole is here, but mostly the holes are under the strings. Okay, if you tap it, you can tell it's hollow. Now if I was to play this, you can quite clearly hear it. Okay, so this would be, if I couldn't plug it in, an acoustic. But I can plug this one in. It's got its own little tone controls at the top, are there, which can go into an amplifier, which makes it a semi-acoustic. So you can plug it in and you can play it without an amp. Okay, so solid bodied basses or solid bodied instruments are strictly for amplifiers. Hollow bodied are strictly without, or just acoustic for without amplifiers. Semi-acoustic could be played with or without amplifiers. I've already mentioned sharps and flats, okay, for the notes. Each note has a letter, okay. The letters don't go A to Z, they go A to G. Okay, so you think, oh, there's only six letter, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, so many 6 letter. Making a fool of myself now. Seven notes, but no, there's steps in between the notes. But it's not a equal step between all the notes, so that makes it again sound a little bit more complicated. You've got A, then you've got A sharp, then you've got B. Okay, follow me here because it does make sense. But B flat is also the same as A sharp. Okay, so when you get into grips with it, it helps if you stick to either saying sharp or flat, so you know where you're going. Okay, so you got A sharp, then B. But B doesn't have a sharp. It goes straight to C. Then you got C sharp, then you got D, then you got D sharp, then you got E. E hasn't got a sharp. Goes to F, F sharp, G, G sharp. When it goes from G sharp, it comes back around to the A. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I haven't confused it too much. So there's no gaps in between B and C, and there's no gaps between E and F. The rest have got one note in between them, which is either the sharp of the previous letter or flat of the next letter. Okay. If you're going to try and learn from music, again, if you're like me, I can't read music. When you see all the funny shapes, the crotchets, the quavers, the whatever they are, I can't understand them. I've tried, I can't get my head around it. The gaps are too small in between the lines and I'm lost. Okay, so something I use is called tab, or tablature is the full word of it. Now what that is, it's quite basic to look at, but unless you know what you're looking at, it's still confusing. You got your lines going across. Each one of those lines signifies a string. The thickest string being at the bottom. Okay, took me ages to get my head around that as well. So the thickest string is at the bottom. Now each string, on each marking for the notes of the music, there'll be a number. So if I pick this one up again, for example, it'll say 3 on the first string, on a thick string. There's also 4 string, 5 string, 6 string tab, but for the purpose of this I'm using 5 string. So it's 3 on the thickest string, which would be there. So I know to put my finger there on 1, 2, 3 on that string. The next note, maybe the next string up, and it'll say 5. So I know to put my finger there on the 5th fret, next one up. And that's basically what tab is. It'll just tell you where to put your fingers to find the notes. Okay. Something that was a real sort of egg on face thing when I first started as well is when someone used to say, "Oh, play me a riff." Right? A riff is a break in time and space. It's not a guitar line. It's called riff, which is R-I-F-F. What it's shortened for, I got no idea, but it's not riffed. So that's a little one, as a little one from me, just to help out a little bit. It's riff, not riffed. Okay. I'll try and find one here. Something else you may come across is one of these little plastic or wooden even, or whatever, these things. Okay, this is known as a pick or a plectrum. Okay, what you do with this, with your right hand, or if your left hand, left hand. You use this to hit the strings. I don't really play with a pick. I'm more of a finger player. That's another term. Finger playing. So I'm just... Or you're a pick player. Or both. Okay. It's what you find you start with, you stick with. I started playing with my fingers. I feel uncomfortable playing with a pick. But some songs just require you play with a pick. It just comes down to your taste. So yeah, this is it. I know it's been a long video, but hopefully this will give you a little bit of understanding of the mechanics of the bass. Okay, thanks a lot. I'm Big Chris, signing out. Have a good one.